So first of all, I want to say hi, Verna. Thank you for having this conversation. I really appreciate it. And for anyone who's watching this, my name is Gregory Peters. I'm the Executive Director of the San Francisco Coalition of Essential Small Schools. Our organization is committed to helping schools and communities identify and interrupt inequities facing our students. And that is part of the reason that we're here talking, is that I am hoping that in this conversation, Verna Castro, who is running for AUSD Board of Education, I'm hoping that you, Verna, can help, or I'm hoping this conversation will help surface not only your commitment to equity, but how you see you as a Board of Ed commissioner will help Alameda achieve its vision of equity. So again, thank you for being here. Did you want to say an opening comment or?
No, I just want to say welcome to everyone, and I thank you, Greg, for being here. I have you've done a lot of work around equity, and I've always looked to you and your work, and it's kind of very insightful for me as I go along. So I really do appreciate this and giving me the opportunity to share my story.
Wonderful, that's great. So let's jump right in. Talking to you and knowing you and seeing you at some presentations for your campaign, it is really clear to me that one of the cornerstones for your campaign is that you bring an equity lens or an equity focus to your leadership. I also know that, like I said, to be true of you because of knowing you. So my first question to you is, I know that's what you come with. Why is that important to Alameda Unified? In other words, what are the equity issues at Alameda that require a board member who has an equity focus?
Great. It's a good beginning to this conversation, because I do know that Alameda Unified is in its second year of a refresher of their strategic plan and their graduate profile. I've been doing a lot of research on that, and the fact that I've been a 34-year educator in a progressive district nearby San Francisco Unified, who has done the work on, anti-bias education, trauma-informed practices and whatnot. So that is to begin with, but I think I'm going to go more in depth, but I want to share my story because I can't detach the personal from the professional work. Okay, so if you will, my story starts 1960. My parents came here from Guam to Alameda for that dream. They were immigrants, and they came here to live. My father was stationed at the naval base. My mother was a teacher. You were either, you went to the military or you were a teacher on the island. So there were only two choices. So they did that. So they came here to raise their children. Myself and my brother were born here, but I was actually born in Kaiser Hospital in Oakland. But they wanted to purchase a home here, but housing discrimination or redlining, whatever you might call it, they weren't allowed to buy here. So they moved out. So years later, my father passed. He was a fireman. He passed, and it ended my mother raising 5 children on her own. We were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I was the 9-year-old, the eldest girl. And I wanted to frame it with my personal life in that manner, because I saw the inequities as we grew up, and I didn't know what equity or inequity was then. As a child, you really don't. You just kind of follow. And the fact that they were immigrants, her goal was to, assimilate us into the culture, the American culture. And she knew education was that path. So what I did see and what I did learn, which is kind of like defines who I am and how I work, is that value of hard work, the value of just welcoming all people. There's a saying in our culture called Infana Malik, and the Chamorro culture. Chamorro is the indigenous people of Guam. My mother and father were indigenous. That means harmony. It means bringing good to the group, bringing harmony to the group. Okay, so, and I'm going to share lots of stories as we go through how important harmony or extended family for the good of the group, just so that we can accomplish goals together. So with that, also learned about perseverance. I mean, you see a mother raising 5 children on her own and in poverty, and you see how she did that with just really basics, and, you know, with unconditional love and whatnot. You learn how important that is, to never give up on your brother or sister. And again, brother and sister to me means anyone who I come in contact. So those are those authentic relationships, authentic partnerships that we'll talk about later. So my early schooling obviously was Eurocentric, or, you know, it was white supremacist. And that I didn't know a lot about. I just kind of followed. I did well in school, but was detached in a way where it didn't feel good to me. What felt good was playing basketball. What felt good was my outlet of movement with sports. Okay, and that's where I connected the life skills, and I connected, how to set goals, and I connected friendships, and I connected the universal, we can work on this together. Okay, so finished school, and then I kind of started my professional life. At that same time, I had a child, so I raised one child. She's an MFT. She has a private practice in Alameda. Wonderful girl. She's multiracial. She's Cherokee, Chamorro, and Black. I have 2 grandsons by her and her partner, 2 beautiful boys, a 4 and a 1.5-year-old. They're biracial as well. And so that kind of informed who I was. So coming into education for 34 years, coming into SFUSD, I came equipped with this foundation of, hard work, okay, persevering. Education is at, top. You gotta, make that grade. Any way you can, get it done. Okay, so that's how I taught. So I came in as a PE teacher, started with that. So I went 27 years as a PE teacher. And I think I've got lots of stories of that, how I held kids along and brought them along, changed a few systems along the way. And the systems are more in terms of within the classroom, how to personalize learning for students, okay? And that has a lot to do with equity too, because equity to me means, embracing culture, embracing, where people are, making it welcoming, the collective. So brought that to PE. Looked at health disparities because I was a long time PE athletic person. So looked at health disparities and found that our Black and brown children and our special needs children are the ones who needed help. And you can call it the achievement gap. I just called it, there was a need, and how do we get the resources to move students along the path of optimal health or optimal success. So that was my goal. So I think I was quite successful. I built a lot of relationships with kids and families along the way and still have that. So with PE, I also started coaching. Coaching, again, like I said, I was very passionate about it. It's who I was. The movement was one of healing. It was beyond fitness. It was healing. Movement to me is body wisdom. So those are the things that I brought. So within coaching, I went to 11 championship games, won 7 championships. More importantly than that is I was able to create this high rigor system of you play sports and you get the grade. And I'm not talking about the 2.0 CIF, that's the California Interscholastic Federation minimum GPA. I'm talking get a 3.0 to play, because I recognize if you received a 3.0, if you have that grade, then you have a better chance of getting in college. Your SAT or your ACT doesn't have to be as high. So just trying to look at these pathways for our students was very, very, very important to me. And I believe that sports was a platform where our Black and brown and just students in general loved. And it's these pathways where you can connect education, you can connect life skills, okay? It's these things where you look at what's working in schools, you build what's working, all right? All throughout my professional life, I saw initiatives coming down, okay? Teachers pushing back, rather than schools saying, okay, what's working? Let's build on that structure, all right? So I was one of these teacher leaders, coaches that built built on that and made it kind of comprehensive to the whole child. I moved on and I became athletic director. And I'm sorry, I'm being lengthy here just because.
Story, it's your story.
Okay, thank you. I became an athletic director and I made that move because I wanted to leverage onto a larger macro level within the school system rather than just my classroom as a coach and a PE teacher. And that was a hard conversation I had with my students and my teams, letting them know I had to leave. It was, I had some tears going, but I even shed tears, but I also let them know there's going to come a time in life that you're going to have to make a decision for the greater good. And they understood that. And we're still connected with a lot of students to this day. So when I jumped over and became the athletic director, and I was 19 years at a school on the east side, and by the way, I've always worked on the east side of San Francisco, which is like the west side of Alameda, the BIPOC community. I did that intentionally because that's who I was. I was a marginalized student, okay? And I knew that what students see is what students be, all right? I recognize that they needed to see and hear the people, they needed to see that they can do what I can do. And that, I think that was my gift when you talk about equity, is how to be the salesperson, how to relay that message to the students that they can do it. So those are those stories. And I think part of the equity thing is really getting to know the students. And I know the schools and people are going down the road of, this is COVID time. And during COVID, you make connections, you build relationships, authentic partnerships. But this is something I did 20, 30 years ago. And I think part of that, I'm going back up to, that's the way I was raised, is that you have to know the families, not just the student. You know the student, you got to know their family, and then you got to get those wraparound service supports to help students along. And that's really, when you're talking about equity, that's needed. So my athletic director program, I transformed that. I came in with 4 teams, and we grew to 19 teams. And the students had a 3.0 GPA to play sports. In order to do that, I had to change systems. And the systems were tutorial and study hall and progress reports, and bringing in the community, the teachers to support the study hall, bringing in outside folks to lead groups for students. Wellness was also attached. We in San Francisco were very fortunate because there was wellness programs in all the schools, which is necessary for achievement. You can't have students achieve if you don't have the basic needs of students. And that's one of my plans for Alameda is, build so that eventually we'll have wellness centers in every school. I know that's a big vision, but it is that. It's a vision. And obviously we'll have to look at frameworks, and we have to explore, just the methods on how to do that. So that's long term. But right now, going back to it, it's a 3.0 GPA, partnerships with Stanford in terms of training students and parents and coaches on how to be a positive coach. So we had a dual philosophy of life skills and sports. And I think we were quite successful in building that. So I then moved over to central office, and I did that intentionally too, because again, I hit a plateau. And I feel like when you hit this plateau, you can maybe leverage and do greater good. So I came into central office and did some 8th year now in central office, managing 21 schools, 14 comprehensive, and a lot of smaller schools that are kind of they're independent. So just check-ins with them. And just changing, we just recently, 2 years ago, we designed a course. We moved from athletics to health and fitness and wellness. And this course was approved by UC A to G for a physical education course. So we're one of the few in California that has a course approved. And that design, we really included the teachers and some parents was involved in that. So I'm currently now working on distance learning and focusing on our BIPOC students and how to create distance learning programs for students who aren't able to access or connect. And that's what I'm doing now. So having said that, and there's obviously more to it, equity leadership in Alameda, how does that apply to me? Or what makes me think that I can be the best candidate for Alameda in this time? Well, we know about Black Lives Matter. We know about the Me Too movement. We know about youth advocacy with our wonderful Alameda Unified School District students. We know about, our president's, decisions that are making to harm folks. And so the time is now. The portal is open for this change of dismantling. And I'm not looking at systems and changing gaps. It's basically dismantling these systems that have happened for many, many years. And I think because I've done the work with groups of students and communities as well, those authentic partnerships, I believe that I am a voice that I can bring this diverse thought to the community, and along with infusing what I know about strategic plans and graduate profiles early on. And I think we can together build a community of we belong here in Alameda for all our students.
That's awesome. Wow. I've been taking some notes, and I think the first thing I want to do is offer a couple of reactions for our own connection and appreciation. So when I think about the stance you took with the work you did as a teacher and you've done as a district leader around PE specifically, that actually speaks to me on a personal level. One, as a student who never got that, like I got the old-fashioned competition, etc. I was not a fit for PE. I mean, I liked playing certain sports and all, but the setup of the class, that actually led to me cutting classes. That led to me because it wasn't a welcome place. It was a place of harm. And so that approach is beautiful, and that approach belongs everywhere. That's not a PE issue. That's about developing community, et cetera, which is so clearly in your blood. But also I want to say, as a principal, we had an athletic director who I believe had a very, very similar vision of yours. And it was not okay to have lower expectations for sports where we knew this was disproportionately the hook for our BIPOC students. And so we're like, no, this is the hook, great. And the expectations are low. Our kids they'll rise to whatever expectation we give them, as low or as high as they are.
Yes.
And our athletic director was like, no, not only do you need the 3.0, but on the days of games, you are coming in you're dressed presentation ready.
Yes.
You're coming, and if you have an issue during the day, you can't be an ambassador on the court.
Yes.
You can't be an ambassador on the field. Like, the expectations are so high, and this led to accelerated success in the classroom, just like you're saying. And I really appreciate you recognizing that we're not pushing our kids that they're either going to be good at sports or they're going to be academic.
Yes.
No, our kids are brilliant and they're talented in different ways. And our athletes are scholars and our artists are scholars and our whatever.